Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Wilson here with fighters, coaches, and fathers. Super excited to have Mr. Lee Mean on this episode. Lee, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on. I know we just posted a video, Brian Bird, and at the end of the video, we talked to Brian. He said, "You know who else should really do this? Is you got to talk to Lee." And he was the first guy that recommended it. So I really appreciate taking the time.
Cool.
One of the great things about Lee is you're a fighter. You're an active pro fighter. You just fought last month. You're a coach, and you're also a father of Jordan Mean, who is actually going to be in the UFC show in Calgary in July. So pretty amazing and great to have you on. So thank you very much. Before we get into that, though, talk to me a little bit about growing up and where you grew up and your journey into MMA from childhood to where you are now.
Yeah, I grew up in Stettler, a small town, kind of east of Red Deer, and grew up swimming competitively. That was my sport, and so did that as a background. And then as I graduated high school, and I had shoulder injury, so I wasn't training anymore. I was just kind of sitting around, getting fat like everybody does once they get married and have kids. And I was 25. My brother had come back from California. He'd been training Kempo karate down there, and he started showing me, some of the stuff from there, and I really fell in love with it, and just got involved with that right away, learning that and teaching that, and the point fighting and the tournaments, and that just kind of led to. I was working security at the time and wanted stuff that was practical, that actually worked in a combat situation. So we started, delving into jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and more combative style arts. And that's what got me hooked in it right from the start.
Interesting. So started in competitive swimming. How old were you when you started swimming?
I believe I was grade 4 or 5. Yeah, I started swimming. So, yeah.
Interesting. I don't think I've heard a lot of our people on our episodes that have talked about swimming there. What do you think? Is it the competitive aspect about swimming, or is there any translation from doing that? I mean, outside of the shoulder injury, doing that moves into martial arts or starts developing your mentality as you move into martial arts?
I think, obviously being competitive, and I loved all sports growing up. And I was always asked if I joined the football team and play football because I was a bigger guy, and, athletic, did track in school and all the school sports. I played basketball, all the stuff we do with phys ed, and I was good at all of those. I just didn't focus on them. And just being competitive, and I was really blessed with having a really good coach, swimming coach at the time. And a good coach teaches you more than just the sport you're doing. They teach you about, life in general and how to set goals and how to work and how to do things that transcend the sport you're playing. And so I was lucky that way to have that. Now my goal kind of was, oh yeah, you want to swim at a high level. When you know you don't have the skills to get to the highest level, or you're not, for whatever reason, putting the right time and work in to get to that next level, then you start evaluating what you're going to do. But I always wanted to be, it was a goal of mine to be a professional athlete. And I just, at the time, didn't know, I was hoping it'd be swimming. And when that kind of failed and I had the shoulder problems, then I got, well, maybe I'll just get into coaching. And I coached swimming for a little bit once I moved to Southern Alberta. And I liked it, but I still had that competitive, well, I want to compete still. And then that's when my brother started showing martial arts, and I just latched onto that. So my schooling I was taking at the time was recreation management, and I was looking at getting to, operating a swimming pool or an ice rink, that type of thing, the hands-on, because I enjoyed that aspect of being involved in that environment. And I just, once I fell in love with the martial arts, I said, I'm going to use those things I learned in school to, better the martial arts school and build a business that way. And that kind of, one side of it fed the other, and, and then eventually got to where, hey, I want to compete still. So we were always competing at different tournaments, and that led to wanting to fight full contact and leading to fighting as a professional. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. One of the amazing things about when we do research, and I was looking at yourself, is being able to put Lethbridge on the map as an MMA community, and very significantly so. When you look at where big shows go to, usually you're looking at population sizes, in the millions. and you guys are doing King of the Cages out there last couple of years. And just to give the audience a little bit of understanding, Lethbridge is a town of about 100,000. Calgary, where the UFC is going, is about 1.2 million, no, 1.3 million, I believe. Talk to me a little bit of how you made that happen. You were the guy that made King of the Cage happen in Lethbridge, didn't you?
Yeah, my show is Rumble in the Cage,
Okay.
and King of the Cage has actually been here. Ken, that owns King of the Cage Canada, good friend of mine, he's done a show down here as well, because the MMA community is so strong. People love fights here, and so back in 2000, I had my first fight in Calgary. It was a pancrase rule fight, and I broke my arm, ulna and radius in my arms, palm striking the guy. And so right after that, I had surgery, but I had a great experience nonetheless with it. And I was like sitting there, and the gym was packed where the ring was, where we were fighting. And I was like, okay, everyone, there's probably 500 people here. Everyone paid like 40, 50 bucks to get in and enter. I paid a fee to enter to fight. Plus I paid my own gas money and hotel to go to Calgary for my fight. So I just kind of reversed engineer and said, as a fighter, if I could do a show in Lethbridge and I paid for the fighters' gas and I paid for their hotel, that would make it more affordable for me to compete. So I thought of it that way first. I thought, okay, I can do this. I was already running my gym, and I was involved in the bar and nightclub business and managing and doing that stuff. So I think I can do this. So the bar I worked at, we decided to host the event there, and I just started calling around. Back then it was like, you had to phone everybody. There was no texting. You called everybody up. You had notes in your phone, in your notebook, writing everyone's phone number down and who had fighters they had. So I had these big scratch pads everywhere. And I just started to put this together. We rented a ring from Mike Miles, actually, to come bring it down to Lethbridge to do this show. And when we went to set the ring up, it didn't fit inside the bar because there were standing pillars for support that were there, and they wouldn't fit. And there was other beams and stuff in the way too. So the owner of the bar, Kevin Redman, a good friend of mine, got out the chainsaw and started cutting down pillars that were in the way. But there were still four main pillars that they couldn't cut away because the roof would collapse. So we ended up having to go to the hardware store, buy rope and chain and pipe insulation, in foam, put it on the ropes and duct tape and make our own ring with the 4 posts that were there on the dance floor of this nightclub. And then we just threw the puzzle match from the gym on the floor. So the very first time there was fights in Lethbridge, and I fought as the main event. So I'm trying to run all this sold out crowd before the doors even opened, and I got no ring to fight in. So we built this thing with the help of Mike Miles and Bill Mahood and all these, guys have been around forever. They were all Keith Crawford. All these guys were there. Mark Pavlich, all this stuff. We were all there trying to make this event happen. I was stressed out to the nines. I was like, freaking out because I was going to have to return everyone's money and the money I spent trying to organize this. And then I still had to fight yet. I was fighting this beast that trained with Mark Pavlich, and it was just overwhelming on all levels. So we got it to happen. We pulled it off. We were fighting right like in a pit. We're on the floor. Everyone's crowded around us. The sweat in the room and the blood flying. All the front row people were splattered with blood. It was just insane. But we pulled it off, and that was the first one in 2000. Ever since then, the longest running show in Canada, and we just improved. I got a custom-made cage that fit in those parameters of that room. It's small to fit in any bar. So it's like fighting in a phone booth. It's a 20 by 20 cage, and we still use that one today. It was built out of aluminum by a manufacturing company here in town, Advanced Metal, and it's all part of the crazy story of how this has all evolved. So
that's an amazing story, and it speaks to sort of the pioneers of MMA and what you guys are doing. Where there's a will, there's a way, and actually having to let the show go on is kind of that entertainment. And you know what? No matter what, we got to get it to move forward. That's a great story, and to continue moving there. Now, I mean, I imagine that might be tougher in today's world with regulation and commissions and that type of thing. But nevertheless, when fans are there and they want to see the fights,
Yeah.
make it happen.
And we were fortunate. Lethbridge had a commission then, and they just weren't active because there was no boxing shows going on. So when I was going to do my show, I found out, I didn't know there was a commission. I thought I'd just host an event. Then the commission approached me saying, "Oh no, you can't actually do that. You need to go through us." So they were willing. They worked with us. We had all that in place. So when fight night came, they were stressing like I was. How are we going to make this happen, right? So it turned out well, and so that's what makes it cool. That from day one, the commission in Lethbridge has always been about helping the sport grow, making it affordable for the promoter, a good experience for the fighters. So it's just been a win-win for all these years. So. Yeah.
It's an amazing story, and really speaks to you being one of the pioneers. And talk to me a little bit about how you've seen fighting and MMA change since 2000 to now 2018.
A lot of ways positive, some ways negative. The positive things are now, you see guys with the guys fighting nowadays have a way higher skill level than we had when we started. My first fight, I remember all I knew was the bridge to escape mount. Now my beginner students know way more than I ever knew before I even had my first full contact fight. So the skill and knowledge base is way higher. Conditioning levels, as a coach, I know way more now how to prepare someone for a fight. So they're way more prepared than I was for my first 10 fights even, so that's good. On the negative side, guys are kind of spoiled. We used to drive 12 hours to Prince George to fight. Bill Mahood would bring Cajun Johnson and his guys 12 hours to Lethbridge to fight. And we traveled to Vancouver to fight and Winnipeg to fight. So we were always driving long trips, and we were get 4 or 5 guys in a room, so we could all go fight and help save costs for the promoter. And because the other promoter was my friend too. And we're all trying to help each other, with our own shows and grow the sport. Nowadays, it's all about fighters. What do they get out of this? How much am I getting paid? Or how much you give me off tickets? And that's how, and I get that part of it. And the sport's growing where it's something that can be accommodated too, or they're very picky about who they fight. No, I don't want to fight that guy. I want to fight, everyone wants an easy fight. And we're like, man, we just want to fight. We don't care who you are, what you are. We just want to scrap. We want a good fight, we want to entertain. And so that's kind of how it's changed. And the UFC's affected that a lot because now people want to get in UFC. So your record determines whether you get in or not. Not always have you fought tough guys to get in, but if you have a good record. And so they've kind of swayed how people view and what they think they need to do to get into the UFC. And that's changed the dynamic of the athlete's mind and the coach's mindsets and how guys prepare for fights. A lot of more guys fight safe now because they will have to make sure they get the win instead of going, no, I'm going to finish a guy. Because when you go to finish a guy, you could get caught. And that's the risk you take. It's much more entertaining for the fans, but less entertainment value, but more job security. And so it's hindered that part of it. But again, there's much more people involved. It's made MMA, a household name. People know what it is. Now you see MMA transforming lives of people, as well as like martial arts. It used to be martial arts, and MMA is still a martial art, but there's that combat and the sports side of it as well. So it kind of covers all avenues. But like I said, there's been the ups and downs on both sides of it, and some things I really like and some things I don't like as much. But the best part about all of it is meeting new friends, new coaches, new gyms, and building these camaraderies between different clubs that I know I can travel anywhere and I can stop into a gym and meet some friends I met before, meet some new friends and say, hey, I'm involved in jiu-jitsu, I'm involved in MMA, and I can go train somewhere. I get guys from all over. Hey, I'm just passing through town. You mind if I drop in and do a class? By all means, come on in. So I built this friendship with guys I want to go out for dinner with when I'm in their town or they're in my town. Guys I love talking to. I love bringing teams in because I love seeing that coach I've known for 10, 15 years, but he's got a brand new fighter. Give that fighter a great experience, but we get to hang out with our buddies that we've known forever. And that's just that's the cool part about being involved as a martial artist and the fight game. And, the negatives, the trash talk, we put up with that stuff, but it's not part of really why I am or who I am. So,
yeah. I love that. And that's a very good synopsis of the change that's sort of happening within MMA today. And it's so good to see the sport continuing to grow like that and to see you being a part of it, Lee. Talk to me a little bit about meeting Terry and how Jordan came to be.
Oh, Kerry. Yes. Well, Carrie isn't the mom of Jordan, but Jordan's mom and I were friends. She lives here in Lethbridge,
Okay.
but as life goes, you get divorced and you move on. You learn from your mistakes. But the big part of it was, Jordan grew up in the gym. He was 3-4 years old when he was coming to the gym, and he was doing little kids class. I remember him always bugging me to play video games and watch Bruce Lee movies. And so I would let him, I always told him, every hour you played a video game, you had to give me an hour of exercise. So he'd be rapping out push-ups and sit-ups and doing the full splits at 3 years old so he could get on a video game and, play whatever it was, Sega Genesis or whatever we had at the time, right? So I probably should have made him read math books and do science so he'd become a doctor. But anyways, he's, that's just the lifelong learning and skills developed through just being a gym rat and growing up in an environment that was positive, something that he wanted to be around. So.
Yeah, so little baby Jordan or young Jordan was sitting there trying to play video games, and you're like, exercise for an hour, then you get an hour of video games. I love that story. That's fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about, because being his father and he's your son, and being a pro fighter, obviously you go through some emotions, and I remember commentating Saturday Night Fights, one of his first fights. He was either 16 or 17 as an amateur. And he went and he fought some 23-year-old. And we're like, what is this kid thinking? And then he just is incredible. And we're like, who is this guy? And you could tell right after as his amateur career, he was something special.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just as his dad, you want your kid to do well. My main thing is I want to be happy, and I tell him this all the time. If you don't want to fight anymore, I don't have a problem with that. You got tons of fights. You've done it. You've been there, done that. You were in the UFC. If you don't want to fight anymore, don't fight. Go get a job, teach, whatever it is you want to do, but do that 100%. You got to learn to be in the moment, and that's hard. Fighters are really good, I think, a lot of times because they're so hypersensitive to certain things, and they're like ADD type. They focus on one thing, and it's all that. But they can't balance, home life, work, to maintain balance. So it's all one or nothing. So when they're not in the gym, they're working. If they're not in the gym because they're with their girlfriend, they can't find this balance between train a little bit and have a life, train a little bit and work, and so it's either one or the other. And so that's the struggle I think all of us have to a degree, but the elite guys I find have that as well. And so I'm trying to instill that into enjoy what you're doing and be in the present moment as much as you can. And enjoy the fight game. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it anymore. As a coach, I'm on the thing. There's certain things you have to do to be ready for a fight. If you're like me, you're fighting just for fun. I hurt my back my last fight. I didn't train. I only got like 2 weeks of training in before my last fight. I didn't want to pull out the fight. I knew what it's like for a guy to lose his opponent. I know what it's like for a promoter to lose a fight. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go in there and bang away and see what happens. If I gas out, whatever. And that, that's what happened. At his level, you're fighting the best guys in the world. So if you can't prepare yourself properly, you probably shouldn't be fighting. You could get hurt. Plus, if you lose, you can get cut from your career. You don't move up in pay if you don't win. There's lots of downside to the pressure of not winning when you're at the highest level. So you got to weigh all those things. And I try and be, put my dad hat on and be that way with him. And I have my coach hat. And I try and separate the two. But because he grew up in the gym and grew up around the fight game, it's kind of all the same. And that's sometimes I don't separate the two enough, and that's what I'm trying to learn is to be a good dad, but also be a good coach and separate them more. Before we're just together all the time, and which was cool, and that's the tough struggle there. And, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I love the fact that you're sort of talking about the dichotomy of being Jordan's father and being Jordan's coach. And I sit back and I think about, man, you've been in his corner for so many fights. What's the difference between Lee Mean the coach and Lee Mean the father, and being in that moment when maybe something's not going perfectly? Is there an internal conflict that happens within you, or is it does it just work itself out? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really have that. Like, what's your son? What do you feel about your son getting punched in the face? Like, when he's fighting, I don't think of him that way. He's my athlete. And I don't want to see him get hurt, just like I don't want to see my other fighters get hurt. I'm ready to throw in the towel for all my guys if I think they were taking too much damage. And I feel like they are my son, they are my daughter that way, whether they literally are or aren't. And so with Jordan, him being my son, I want to see him do well because he's my fighter and I want him to do well. But as his dad, I want him to be happy and doing well. And that's why I say, if you're not happy fighting, then don't fight. I don't care if you do or you don't. As a coach, I want you to get your ass in the gym and train hard and be ready to fight and win. But as my other fighter's friend and as their coach, I do the same thing for them. And you got to enjoy life. If you're not enjoying the training and the process and the fight game, don't do it. Just enjoy being a martial artist and have your life and enjoy your wife and your kids and let's get together for a barbecue. Yes. So I've never really had that conflict for me with him. I don't want to see any of my guys get hurt, and that's that. After the fights are over, I'm the same way. I just want to, see he's happy and he's healthy and everything's good that way. So,
Lee, how do you determine a fighter's ready to move from regular training into amateurs and into the pro level? Is there a criteria you look for your fighters, or how do you determine that? Or is there a formula you use?
Yeah, I look for slightly crazy, and then I know they're almost ready to fight. You know what? I trust in what we do for training, and I tell people, and Jordan's an example of this. Coming to group classes, the one the mom and dad do, the one the kids do, you come to that class, you will learn what you need to know to fight, whether you ever choose to fight or not. So I have them start in class, they're learning the fundamentals, they're doing the things that are important for conditioning. And when you get that down, I usually tell people, if you want to fight, talk to me about it. I don't really approach people and say, hey, do you want to fight? Because I don't know that people ever want to fight, and I don't care if they do or don't. But if you have an interest that's on your bucket list, man, I've always wanted to try that. Well, then get in here and train. I'll show you what it takes to I will get you there. I know I can get you ready for a fight. If you're athletic and you're serious and you're willing to put the work in, I know I can get you to the UFC. I know what that takes to get you there. So there's that side of it as well. But again, at the end of the day, I just want guys to enjoy martial arts and be happy. So that's kind of I see guys, I go, man, this guy has what it takes to fight. And that's the guys who aren't afraid to fight. They don't flinch when they get punched. They have that athletic ability. They're gifted that way. That's great. Sometimes the guys who are gifted and things come easy, then it's like they don't want to put the work in then. It's like, I got this, no problem, and whatever. I don't want to do it. You're the guys who are less talented, who have to work harder to get there. I find those guys make the best fighters because they're all about work ethic and working hard versus, ability or, attributes that they already had. So.
Yeah, I think there's a quote that exemplifies exactly what you're saying, Lee, and it's hard work beats talent every time when talent refuses to work hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And I truly believe that is something that hard work will always beat out talent. But when talent and hard work meet, usually have something special. Talk to me a little bit about the fight game. Like, you've been doing the promoting, you've had a successful event there, and you've had fighters in the UFC, and you're saying, I know how to get you to the UFC. When we had conversations with other people in the episodes, like Brian Bird, he's going, you know what? There is actually a very important political component to getting fighters into the UFC, because I think that everybody understands, hey, man, you got to have wins. You've got to be somewhat charismatic, and you got to know the political side of the game. Can you talk to me, or do you have any stories around insight around, the UFC or the larger organizations, and what politically you've seen people make mistakes and what's really worked out well? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, I think, again, you got to know people. Like anything, any business in the world, it's friends take care of friends to a degree. Schmoozing, I've seen $1 million business deals done on napkins in a nightclub when guys are having some drinks and partying together. You feel comfortable with someone, you like them for whatever reason, you have an emotional attachment to somebody, then you're more likely to do something with them. So that's part of it, you know. And I remember when Jason Day was trying to get into UFC, I'd met a manager. I went to watch a UFC fight, who managed some UFC fighters. And he said, hey, you know, he used to happen to be from Canada, but now lives in the States. Just coincidence, bumped into a guy, traded business cards, kept in touch with them. He's, you know, it was one of these things where, hey, my fighter's having this big party and Joel Silva's going to be there. Why don't you and Jay Day come down here and maybe, you know, meet him? Great, because we didn't know any of those guys at all, you know. So we drove down in his car, drove all the way to Vegas, went to this party at this hotel, met Joel Silva, made contact. Oh, nice to meet you, you know, and schmooze and do all that stuff. Great guy, and just kept trying to keep that rapport going and just contact. You know, drove back, his car broke down the way home, crazy trip to get home, you know, that type of stuff. But we made that initial contact, and we just kept following up with that. And so it's getting to know people. I know some guys, you know, they like the hype and the guys who trash talk. And that's cool, but not everybody's that person. You know, it comes back to that whole, there's a villain and there's a good guy, good versus evil. And who are you going to be? My team is not the evil guys. I don't do that with people. My guys don't tend to do that. They might think it or say, I should try that. I love that, but it's not in them. And that's okay. Well, we'll be the guy the bad guy fights then, if that's the marketing ploy or whatever. But you have to be able to show up and you have to fight and entertain in some capacity. Now, a lot of my guys are, because I do my own show, they get to do interviews, and they're used to doing interviews, and I have to answer a question with a question. So they're groomed that way. So when the UFC would see Jay Day, it's like, oh, this guy already knows how to do an interview. Oh, yeah, he's done a ton of them on my show. Do you have any footage? I got tons of footage on my guys, you know, and all my guys coming through have been that way and have that experience. And they fought in tough fights. I don't believe in guys fighting easy fight. Yeah, I know you're starting out. You just fight whoever says yes, basically, so you can get some fights. But as you're going, I want my guys to fight guys that are tough, that I know is going to test them. So when they do get to the UFC, I know they belong there. And that's what I want the UFC or other promoters to know. My guys bring it. They might not have the best records, but they know they're entertaining, and that's the thing. So you can play both sides. I know some guys that like to do the trash talk, and they're calling every day. And then, you know, you meet, you know, Joel Silva when he was doing it, and Sean Shelby now that's, you know, matching fights. He's like, do you know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, that guy drives me crazy, you know, because he's always bugging him. He might get signed eventually, but him doing that is maybe not getting him in as soon as if he was just nice, just touching base when it's appropriate, just reminders that, hey, I got this guy, he's out there if you need him, and being in shape and being ready. So when a short notice thing comes, you can take that. And, you know, not just, well, I'm going to sit on the couch until they call me, and then I'm going to start training for a fight. Yeah. And those are all things that tie into this political, you know, thing. And then if I know that every time my fighters have fought, they made weight, we had all the paperwork in immediately. Yeah. We cross our T's, dot our I's. If they know we're that team to deal with, we've never turned down a fight, we're that team, hey, that's a good thing for them to think of us that way. And when they call us, they call us. And, you know, it's a business, and there's certain gyms in the States that have a stable of guys, and you already got 3 guys from that gym fighting, so it's easy to pick up a 4th. They're already coming. I get it. And we're stuck in small Lethbridge. And so, you know, they're travel-wise, it's further and all these other things, but yeah, we're willing and ready when able. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm originally from Regina, which when I was there, it was about a town of 100,000. And I've been in Vancouver here for a long time. But there is also something about the smaller town mentality, whether it be Lethbridge or towns that I see, where you guys are kind of like, there's a stronger bond of family there that I find with the smaller clubs, where guys are really, really good guys, and they're really, really it's less of a club and more like a family, it seems. Right. Is that saying?
I think that's the culture of how you want to run your business. Sometimes just the personality of the coaches. That's how I am. I'm pretty casual. I like to let things go. I don't hold on to grudges from the past. I'm like, whatever, let's just move on, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. If there's a point that has to be made and you have to stand your ground for things, yes, I'll do that. But it's like raising kids. They're going to disappoint. You know, I disappointed my parents. If my kids disappoint me, you get over it. You love them anyways, and let's move on. And that's what it's like running a gym and how I want it. I want a gym environment that I want to be in, right?
Yeah.
I have friends who run gyms who they want things by the book, military style, because that's what they like. That's where they feel comfortable. Well, they will and the people who like that will gravitate towards those people. The people who like the casual, the way I like it, gravitate towards me. There's problems with both, right? And you have headaches with both. But if I'm willing to accept those headaches and those things because I'm casual and don't set too strict of boundaries, well, then that's okay. Every once in a while, you gotta slap hands and put people in line. But just like parenting, you know, it's just kind of that same way. But I'm comfortable. I'm here all day, and I don't think about it. If I was a job I hated, I would be looking at the clock going, when do I get out of here? No, I'm not coming in for an hour extra. I'm not going in for free to help somebody or do anything. I want out. My gym, my thing, you know, so I'm blessed that way. I get what I want out of both sides of it. So
amazing. I'm going to ask you about the future of MMA, where you see it's going to go. But before that, there's a question I always ask of clients. I want to talk a little bit about, I love your competitive spirit. It's evident in every word that you say. But talk to me a little bit about possibly one of the greatest lessons one of your parents taught you growing up that instilled sort of who you are today.
Yeah, it's just one of those things like life, things that happen in life that kind of drive you further. And I think I was like 18, 19. I had my daughter already. My dad passed away from cancer. He'd been battling cancer for like 10 years. So, you know, at the time I'm 19 and he's 42, 43, whatever he was. And I'm like, he dies, like, you know, he's young, but in your mind, well, he did a lot. You know, he's 40 some years old. He experienced a life. And then as I got to 40, you know, I was like, actually, when I got to 32 and I had my first fight, I realized this is the age my dad was when he got cancer. And anyway, it's tough to talk about, but it was just one of those things where I started consciously thinking, man, what quality of life am I having? You know, he's battling cancer every day, trying to make a living. And what am I going to do with what I have? And that kind of set me in this path. So,
yeah, it sounds like,
you know, and then when he died, you know, I was like closer to 42, and I'm like, man, I haven't done anything, you know. So it just my sorry, my internal passion is I want to get everything done I can do. So now that I'm 51, I feel like my bucket list is pretty complete.
So yeah, and I gotta say, man, you're an active fighter. You're an active promoter. You've got Jordan, who's in the UFC, fighting in Calgary next month. And if I had to look back on what I've done, I'd be going, I haven't done anything compared to Lee. So I think you're doing pretty good. But thank you for sharing that. Talk to me about how you see the future of MMA and what it's going to look like maybe in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, I'm hoping for. It's such a. Again, I really like that Bellator is getting stronger because it creates some competition, and that's good. That keeps everybody honest. Gives more opportunity for athletes. You know, I want to see people be successful. People ask me all the time, why are you so willing to put your fighters on other people's shows? I'm like, I want my fighters to fight and get experience, and I want that promoter to be successful. Because if he's successful, that gives a place for us to go compete. I don't have to own everything. I'm busy enough as it is doing my thing. So I never have shortage of guys that want to fight on my shows because we treat them really good. So that's great. So I want on the big picture, on the pro level, the elite level, I want to see the same thing. I want to go where you're treated great, you enjoy it, they take care of the fighters, you do everything you can for them. It's a win-win. One's a boss, one's an employee, but everyone's out to help each other. You know, I like that type of atmosphere. That may not be the way it is all the time, but that's what I shoot for. And I see the sport going that way. as it grows and becomes more popular, like other sports, people say, it's horrible what fighters get paid. It is. And especially when you see the revenue being made by some of the companies that, they could pay more. But also it's a very new sport. Boxing guys are getting millions and millions of for boxing, but it's only the elite that are getting that top amount. Lower level guys still get the MMA guys do, but boxing's been around for a very long time. Football, basketball, they've been around for a very long time. They've had time to grow and establish. Golf, all these sports, they went through their troubles. They had to create unions, players associations. These happened because of struggles and because of overtime. So MMA is such a new thing that in time that will change. Will I be a part of it then? I doubt it, but whatever. I just hope for the future, guys that still get to compete and enjoy. And I think it'll become the #1 martial art, and it'll be the thing that people do because there's such variety to it. And so, can be life changing, and that's the purpose of it. So that's the positive side of how I think things are going to go. The negative side, because of winning affects, where you go. I see it becoming like boxing where, guys jab for 12 rounds because they're doing the sweet science of boxing and no one wants to fight anymore.
Yeah.
And that's great. Okay, you have a great jab and you can run and hide, but you really can't fight. And so the entertainment value to me is not there at all. And could you finish the guy? No, because you're jabbing and running. If you say, well, I could eventually, well, when? You already did 12 rounds and you couldn't finish them. So when 2 days later, you could finish a guy, it's a battle of endurance, or can you find the strategy to attack and find a way to get an opening to finish a person? That's what I look at as far as teaching. What's the next thing? Where do we evolve coaching wise to get guys to be able to finish somebody? Yeah. Yes, we know that can be countered and whatever, but that's kind of on the coaching end, the growing sport of MMA. I see that as where it should be going, and not the other way of let's fight safe and let's preserve the win and hope the judges viewed what we, did as appropriate. So
perfect. And if there's anybody in the Lethbridge area, they probably already know about Lee Mean and his school, but if there's anybody that's coming in new, how would they get a hold of you? When do they get into classes? How would they reach out?
Yeah, they can check out our website, cmcmma.com. That has our schedule on there, where we are. They can drop in anytime, check out the gym. We have a full weight room and training facility that way. We have full mat area and heavy bags. So a little bit of everything for people. We start with ages 4 and up for classes for kids and adults. And, one of my students, he's 60 plus years old. He just got promoted to a white stripe on his blue belt. So it's a definite family thing here. And that's what I want to encourage. I just want people to enjoy their lives. And I want to get to meet and know everybody that comes through Lethbridge. And I want to have more than just 5,000 friends on Facebook that I don't actually know. I want to actually meet people and shake their hand and build a lifelong bond with people in the community. So,
yeah, it sounds awesome. Lee Mean, thank you so much for joining us today on Fighters, Coaches, and Fathers. And if you liked it, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel below. And I imagine we'll have Lee on maybe closer to the UFC event in July, and possibly Jordan as well. So thank you very much, sir. And we'll talk.
Thank you.
Okay.